Welcome to another UserScript Sunday. In today's episode, we are going to be modifying LinkedIn's new post user interface. Specifically, we're going to be adding the number of followers to the suggested hashtags. And this is obviously going to be useful when choosing hashtags to add to your post, because it'll help you choose the hashtags that will get your content in front of the most people and the right people. So with that, let's get scripting. So this UserScript Sunday is going to be a little bit different. As always, you can find the code on GitHub, but today what I'm going to do is go through each of these steps that I have listed here in Chrome snippets and just run the script, briefly talk about the steps, and show you what it does for those of you who are into the whole brevity thing. So the first thing I want to mention is that if you grab this code off GitHub, then you will need to replace the CSRF token with your own. And there's a few different places you can find that. So first of all, let's run this. You will see that you get a 403 response, and that's an issue. Okay, so first way to get the CSRF token is to look in Application, and then Cookies, and JSession ID. That is your CSRF token for LinkedIn. Copy that, go back to our Snippets tab. Let's paste that in, save, and run. And look at that, we are good now. Okay, the second place that you can get your CSRF token is really just in the Network tab. Basically, any call should have it. So how about this one? You can see as I scroll through the tabs, I need to go to the Cookies tab, and there it is, JSession ID. Okay, so step one, we need to get the number of followers for a hashtag. That's the data we're going to be adding to the UI, so that's what we need. Here is the API that delivers the data. Finding the APIs that deliver the data that you want is usually a pretty straightforward process, so I'm not going to go over that here. But this is it. If we give it a run, you can see that we have an array of 1 down here. And then we just have to click through the object to find the follower counts property. So step 2, we need to isolate that data. So again, it's the same fetch, and then this is all the same. We're turning the response into JSON, and then we're just going to log out that follower count. That looks good. And now we're on to step 3. We need to get the data for multiple hashtags. So we have our array of hashtags here, and then we are going to use promise.all. We're going to await that so that we are waiting for all of our data to be returned from the API. Once all the data is returned, all of those promises are resolved, and we continue on with the next line of code. So we can actually use that data. Let's run it. Looks good. We get 3, and you got your followers, hashtag, followers, the hashtag. That's basically what we want. So step 4, not really necessary, but I refactored out the call API into another function just for readability's sake. If you can see in step 3, I don't know, to me this chunk is getting kind of ugly, unreadable. I just don't like it. So I factored that out, and now we have a much nicer block of code here. And if we run that, it should be exactly the same, except here I'm only using 2 hashtags. And that looks good. Now that we have our data, we need to figure out how we are going to add that data to the UI. So when I create a new post and start a hashtag, you'll notice we get this pop-up. And so the front-end code is modifying the DOM. So what we need to do is listen for the specific DOM changes, and then we will know when that pop-up appears. So I'm going to run this listen for DOM changes script, and then as I type, you will see that we get this message, a child node has been added or removed, right? And every time I add another letter and this changes, every time the DOM changes, we will get a notification that the DOM is changing. So this is a script that I found on this website right here, developer.mozilla.com. And it tells you exactly how to do this. All I really had to modify was this target node, document.querySelector. Now finding that is actually a little bit tricky because you'll notice, let's say we make a change and that's like, okay, I want to see this HTML. I go over to select an element, oh shit, it's gone. Try that again and select an element. Okay, so how do I actually select that element to see the HTML? Well, the way you do it is you can pause the debugger. So here's our trick. We're going to set a timeout, and we're going to pause the debugger after 5 seconds. So if let's clear that first. We're going to run that and add a letter to activate our pop-up. There we go. It's paused. So now that it's paused, we can inspect, and we click here. It doesn't disappear, right? We can actually inspect those elements that were previously disappearing. Okay. So from this inspection, we essentially find that element which we need to listen for changes on. It says .qlEditor. Yeah. So this .qlEditor, which is the text, we're listening for changes on that. And anytime that is changed, we know that the list will update. So that's basically it for the DOM changes. Okay, so now if we look at our DOM changes script, we have this comment that says callback function to execute when mutations are observed. So essentially what we have to do is create our own callback function, which is the entire script that calls the API to get the follower counts for the hashtags and then modifies the DOM and puts in that text. So if we go to our next step, you can see this callback function to execute when mutations are observed. And if the mutation type is equal to attributes, then we are going to set timeout. And so we're going to wait about a half a second just to do this because the DOM might be updated when the DOM might not be updated completely when this function is run. So we're just going to wait half a second or however long you think is a good idea. Anyway, then we've just got the main function where we're going to throw all of the code, right? And so there's a few things that we're doing on the outside here. But then it's the same as it was in step 3 and step 4, where we get the hashtag text and we call the API for the follower account. I'm going to reload the page just to kind of like reset everything, right? And then I'm going to run this. What? Okay. Well, we're getting an error because the post thing isn't up yet. So now if we run it, it should be good. And then if we do .ch, there we go. Now we have our final solution. We have the number of followers for each hashtag. Yeah. The last thing we can do is stylize it. Now, originally I was going to put this in a separate part, as you can see, but all we are doing is this part right here. We are creating an element. Yeah, we need to do that. Oh, follower div.style. That's it. Right? And then our inner text is the tag.followers, the data that we were extracting earlier. And then the, yeah, that's it. Tag.followers. And the rest of this is just, I don't know why I'm console logging, probably because something wasn't working. Yeah, so we're looking for this search type ahead, see if the length is not equal to 0. And then we get the hashtag text and call the API for the follower account. You've already seen all of this. That's a bunch of unnecessary stuff there. Save that. This is just like in step 4. Except we then, once we get our hashtags plus array, as you can see, it might be called something differently here. Hashtag follower accounts, right? Then we are going to just loop through it. And if the inner text is not or is equal to a hashtag, then we want the tag.text, because sometimes if we do something like this, right? This is the same, it's probably the same CSS style, CSS selector. So we, like at NVIDIA or something, yeah, look at all those calls we're making. It's still going, it's still making calls, and they're just 500. So, I mean, whatever, it's not a problem. If we want to fix that later on, we could, but yeah, who cares? So that's it. I hope that you like that. I hope that it will serve you well in the future. And that's it. As always, you can find the code on GitHub. As I've mentioned before, the links to everything are down in this description. And please like, follow, subscribe, and I will see you next Sunday.